Hello and welcome back to Just Good Game News. Thank you for taking valuable time out of your Hollow Knight Silksong play sesh to check out some positive news. I know that's what I'm going to go back to be doing once I've got this thing in the can. Yeah, because Hollow Knight is absolutely dominating this week, and I do have some tips and tricks for that game. We'll be talking about it a little bit as well in the game spotlight this week because it's absolutely dominating. It's one of the biggest success stories of the year so far, if not the generation so far. It's kind of crazy. Feels a little bit GTA 6-ian in regards to just how much it's flying overall. But this is the Just Good Game News. I am Scott Tilford. This is taken from the Just Good Game Show. If you would like to get early access, you can go over to Patreon. You can get access to it ad-free on a Wednesday as part of the overall Just Good Game Show, or you can stick around, watch it on Friday, or wait for the free feeds version of the whole show on Saturday. Plug, as I always have to do. But thank you so much for coming back and checking out the show. Let's get going. First up, the breaking feel goods. The breaking news that makes you feel good. A handful of different things this week, one of which being in regards to Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, where there was a whole lot of backlash against this game in regards to paid additional clans in the game. Now, the developers' Chinese room have put an official statement out saying that the additional price points in regards to the in-game clans was done because they acquired the project over time, and the additional work that they then put into development, that was what they wanted to charge for, which, you know, makes sense. But at the same time, the general feel of, you know, advertising a premium version of your game, this premium pre-order edition of the game, where you were paying for additional clans that you could interact with in the game, just felt a little bit like a step too far for a game that's been in development for so long, and, you know, for a cult classic franchise with such a dogged, you know, dedicated fan base in the first place. The Chinese room have said there will still be a premium version available before release, but that's still being worked out. And a Discord post read, "Please note that this is an intentional first step in our planned course of action leading up to September 17th, where they want to give you more information to deliver the best possible experience for you at launch." So a lot of people spoke out. I covered this in previous weeks, and the response on the dev side was, "Oh God, we're sorry. We'll do right by you going forward." And they're refunding everybody for the premium pre-order editions, and they're going to be removing the paywalled clans in game. And they have said that the hard part going forward is trying to choose, you know, what the hell they then focus on to try and, you know, create this pre-order edition and create this additional value. But as far as getting the vast majority of the essential parts of the game for that initial day one launch fee, we won. Next up, an update from the near mythical at this point Knights of the Old Republic remake, coming from a piece of concept art that was shown from a artist that worked on the game apparently way back in 2021, but now it's been made available online, and it shows the level Kashyyyk. Now, if you played the original Knights of the Old Republic, Kashyyyk's pretty iconic anyway, like in terms of Star Wars ephemera, but that version in the game, you know, was one of the first times that you got to just explore an iconic location yourself, pick a few different paths through the environment, and this is what it might have looked like, or might still look like, in the eventual new version of Knights of the Old Republic. Now, the whole thing with this game, I'll not spend too long on it because I feel like the development of this game is just a complete mess. You know, it was originally under development by a team called Aspire. Apparently, they failed an internal review. It was a good few years ago now, where, you know, the game was checked in on. Obviously, it was announced like, what, 5 years ago or something, with a teaser trailer. One of the most beloved RPGs of all time. Aspire quickly got to work fleshing out the rest of the game, but then apparently they failed an internal review in regards to what the game was supposed to be. Like, the original BioWare game from like 2003 has quite a unique in the modern day gameplay style. Like, you are running up to enemies, and it's almost like a World of Warcraft style auto animation. You're picking different hotkeys on the bottom of the screen type combat system. And so one of the things that they wanted to overhaul for the remake was the combat, but apparently, however that then came together, it didn't come together. So they tried to make it work and they couldn't. Aspire were then taken off development entirely, and the project was given to Saber Interactive. A lot of people thought it was cancelled. You know, veteran game leaker Jeff Grubb weighed in, thought that he thought it was cancelled. I think that was last year, leading to a member of Saber Interactive saying the game and the project overall was alive and well. That was during a 2024, I think it was an investment call or something, but either way, it's still going ahead. And now that we get access to, you know, some concept art that was being used during the height of Aspire's development, we can at least see which bits of the project were in motion. And that being a way more fleshed out version of one of the most iconic and recognizable levels from the original game. So here's hoping this thing finally comes out. You know, we're always talking about those mythical games that everyone's waiting for, like a BioShock 4, a Judas, or whatever it is, something that's pushed back way into the future. And I feel like Knights of the Old Republic remake is alongside them at this point. Next up, a super quick one from Insider Gaming. Tom Henderson over at Insider Gaming saying that he's spoken to various insiders in regards to playtests for Insomniac's new Wolverine game, and that it's shaping up fantastically. Apparently it plays fantastically, which I just thought I'd throw in. I feel like, you know, if we're talking about got games that were put into development across the last 5, 6 or so years, crossing over with the height of the pandemic, general conversations leading to what state is this game in. The Wolverine game has been one of those titles where the discussion around it is, what the hell even is this? You know, I feel like Insomniac have been through the ringer in regards to putting together Spider-Man 2. It felt like that game was cut down from what it was originally supposed to be, at least in my opinion. If you look at the marketing and you look at the idea that we were going to get a Spidey and Miles Morales versus Venom fight in the city streets, that was part of the key art, and then it wasn't in the game at the end. I have my own theories on what happened to Spider-Man 2, but them as a dev, you know, they were subject to a horrific leak a couple of years ago where all of their in-progress projects all leaked at once, including different dev builds of Wolverine. And so we got eyes on what Wolverine was looking like, and you know, it looks like it's still in the same engine as Spider-Man, but the conversation then became, okay, how distinct is this from Spider-Man? What are Insomniac able to do? Can they channel the glorious X-Men Origins Wolverine game from way back in the late 2000s, which I would say is still the absolute best Wolverine game we ever got, and that thing is still stellar to this day. I wish it was available on modern consoles, but still, the conversation around Wolverine is just, what is this game? And thankfully, in regards to, you know, gameplay itself, it seems like it's shaping up. And lastly, for the breaking news, we have more details on Bungie's upcoming Marathon game. Now, you know, that game, it's been delayed. It was originally going to release in September. It was originally going to release this month, which I feel like a lot of us a few months ago thought there's no way that's going to happen. But if you're not familiar with it, Bungie are making an extraction shooter. Bungie, obviously incredibly famous for making the Halo series, and then moving over to Destiny, which was a lot more of a divisive title, but it did find its footing. It did find its audience over time. And their most recent project is Marathon. However, earlier in the year, back in May, it was hit with an insane plagiarism scandal where it was revealed that an artist on the actual team for Bungie was literally lifting pieces of art from another artist called ANTIREAL, who didn't work on the project at all, including different watermarks that they had put into their work to prove it was theirs. Gamers and testers, you know, of Marathon then realized that they can go up to certain textures and assets in the game and literally see the watermark and the signatures in the game. That's how ridiculous this got. So that resulted in Bungie, you know, taking their time, you know, and having to address all of this stuff, leading to what is now the ongoing, you know, the newest piece of news here, that there has been a closed playtest internally at Bungie, but we do have a data leak from Destiny, a hardcore Destiny leaker called Deekstiny. There's apparently well known within the community. They managed to get access to the closed beta or the closed playtest or whatever you want to call it from Bungie, and were able to detail various things in regards to gameplay and the look of the game. The biggest takeaway is that they have overhauled the UI and various visual assets. They would need to, you know, they need to get away from the legal ramifications of having, you know, half of your game's look ripped off from an external source. So that is worth saying, that they have managed to get on top of that. Apparently the UI has overhauled the different factions and clans that you can play as. Their visuals have been changed quite considerably. There is a new runner in the game, a new character in the game, apparently called Icon. It's a female character. She looks like the person that was in the CG trailer, the officially released CG trailer. And there is some new concept art here as well for that character and for another character as well. Another major takeaway in regards to the extraction shooter genre is that Marathon isn't going to be taking place on one giant map. It's actually going to be a handful of different maps. You know, that whole idea of extraction shooters and battle royales all taking place on one giant landmass, that's apparently not what Bungie are doing, which is great because I think they are some of the best multiplayer map designers in the game. And so I'm curious what the rest of, you know, the different extraction shooter mechanics, dropping into a world, trying to get to a certain place, hoovering up some loot, and then trying to get back out again. The general conversation around the closed beta from a couple of months ago was, it's fine, but hopefully there's more to it. And it seems like in this most recent closed playtest, at least on the gameplay side of things, they are fleshing the maps out and fleshing out the characters that you can play as. Icon apparently comes with a grappling hook as well, which, you know, should be a staple in most games, I would say, which is cool. She also has X-ray vision and a few other augments as well. I'll chuck them up on screen so you can see them on the video. But yeah, it seems like this is coming together. It has been delayed into 2026, but just the general state of Bungie, the fact that Pete Parsons has left, you know, they have this very controversial CEO. There was a whole leaked document around how he was spending a lot of company funds on his own private car collection, and Bungie's controversies go further back, especially in regards to workflow. This is not the first time they've been hit with a plagiarism scandal, and it's not the first time that they've been hit, you know, the amount of layoffs that they've had or the different project turnarounds that they've had. They're a very messy studio. It's strange that somehow in the end they always manage to pull it together. They always manage to reveal something, you know, that plays extremely well. Literally the only reason that Destiny survived was because that gunplay felt so so good. And I'm curious whether, you know, an extraction shooter manages to work on a bigger scale than the other extraction shooters that we have, because I don't feel like the genre has taken off in the way that a wider industry heads thought that it would. Also, in regards to maps, apparently there are weather effects here, where an example given is when it rains, it actually rains sparks. You take damage when you're outside, and you need, you know, prioritize taking cover, taking shelter. It was mentioned that different puzzle elements and you have to interact with different objects to get through the levels as well, which feels like something that is taken from Destiny's raid modes. You know, you want to be able to try and, you know, play co-op with a bunch of other players, get through these levels together. It's not all about, I mean, it's not about PvP. It's about getting in, getting your loot, getting out. You know, you can play more stealthily in extraction shooters. It is a very different way to play an online multiplayer shooter, if you would even call it an online shooter. You know, I feel like the extraction mechanics are the thing that stands out more. But it's going to be a learning experience for a lot of people. So the more differentiable mechanics they can put in there, the fresher the game can feel, and the less messy development comes through in the end, the better. On to this week's game spotlight, and of course, it's Hollow Knight Silksong. What a game. What a game. A game, I am very much the meme of F this game, okay, I'm keeping playing it. Because the amount of times, and I've gotten better. Like, it's not that I'm I feel like I'm quite an accomplished game. I've been playing my whole life. Like, you know, playing games my whole life. I'm pretty solid at these games. I can get through most stuff. I finished Ninja Gaiden Ragebound just the other day. Very nice game. Very lovely game. One of the best of the year, you might say. But Hollow Knight, as a lot of people are experiencing, will just kill you. Like, whether it's an environmental hazard, you're dropping down somewhere, you fall into some spikes, maybe there's an enemy that just does a projectile attack that you couldn't even see coming because it's hitting you from off screen. Whatever it is, it puts you in a mindset of, I don't know, being apprehensive, or, you know, taking your time going through these levels way more methodically. However, you do hit a beat where you get enough abilities for your character of Hornet, where, at least for me, it really cranked up the pace. I really love the aerial combat in this. I love all the different bounces you can do off enemies. They were in the original Hollow Knight, but I didn't like the sense of momentum that was in that game. I think Silksong nails it a lot better. That whole downward curve attack that you can do, once you get that down, I think that also works really well as an evasive move. And so I'm really clicking with the combat. And since unlocking like the dash moves and the upward, there's like a floating glide thing you can do. I'm doing this with my hands because you pull the skirt up and then you can fly. That's a really cool move as well. There's a lot to really like about the game that is speaking more to me, that isn't just arduous exploration, you're lost in an open Metroidvania map. You know, that is fine. Metroidvania is one of my favorite genres on earth, but I always need some sort of forward movement eventually, and I think Hollow Knight does get there. And you end up making sort of like a mental list of what you want to do. Like, maybe you come across a merchant that is selling you a key, but it's 500 of the currency, so it's like, okay, let me go out and do some combat and get some of these rosary beads so I can come back and buy something. But along the way, you end up running into a boss that you can't just beat quite yet, or you end up getting lost in a different part of the map, you know, and finding other upgrades, or finding a mask fragment that might give you a better power-up later on. It's really, really expertly designed, and it feels like you're being, you know, curated through this experience in a way that only a game that's been in development this long could do. You know, the original Hollow Knight was 2017, so it's been 8 years overall. And, you know, I loved how much Team Cherry got out there, you know, to address all the conversations around, you know, well, what took you guys so long? Like, you know, what the hell went wrong with this project? And they were like, it didn't. We made a lot of money off Hollow Knight, and we were able to take our time, and we had fun making it. And that's why it took so long. And you can tell, like, you know, and it's absolutely blown up. Like, you know, you'll probably already know the stories around it, but it crashed every single video game storefront all at once. Like PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo, Steam, everything went down all at the same time because just that many people were trying to play the game. There were 500,000 people playing on Steam on day one. It's now been revealed that 5 million people overall played across the first couple of days. Crazy, like really, really crazy. And awesome for Team Cherry. They're a tiny team, so each one of them just became millionaires, like, you know, which will allow them to make future games stress-free. It might take them the better part of a decade to put it out, but if it's this special, then hopefully it's worth it. But yeah, just wanted to shine a light, or contribute to shining the collective light on Hollow Knight Silksong, because it is just as good as people say. I say that more in a calmer mind, because when I'm annoyed fighting a boss, or I'm annoyed with a run I have to do to get back to a checkpoint, or I'm just annoyed with something to do with the game, I'm a little bit more, oh my god, this thing is so cheap, this difficulty is so annoying. But it does put you in a headspace of wanting to overcome it, and once you do, that satisfaction of overcoming a Metroidvania level is key to the genre, and is one of the things that only the most special Metroidvanias get right. That idea of harnessing and owning a landscape overall, and darting around and flying going back and forward, taking out enemies in one hit that you were struggling with before. That feeling is so unique to Metroidvanias, and obviously Hollow Knight manages to nail that by just being completely unforgiving for the most part. It is worth throwing in the Team Cherry have addressed the difficulty, especially at the beginning of the game. Because even some standard, basic NPC enemies and bosses will do 2 health points of damage, and you only have 5 at the beginning anyway, 5 or 6. So you're going down pretty fast unless you're getting used to dodging everything. They have addressed that, and they are patching it. It's specifically a couple of bosses that they're patching, but they also want to address difficulty in general. There's a balance patch that's been put out anyway. So if you were struggling with the beginning of the game, it's worth addressing that, and maybe you'll be able to get through it now, because I do think that it finds a really good sweet spot. But again, I'm saying that now. It's an ongoing conversation. This is not a review. This is just the game spotlight. I'm just shining the spotlight. That's me holding a spotlight on Hollow Knight for now, just saying, you're all right, you, and I want to play more of you. Next up, the overlooked games of the week. We always do new and old. It can be a new release. It can be something that you just want to shout out down in the comments on YouTube, over on the Discord, or on the Patreon. Do whatever you like. I'll take them all. And I'm still thinking of splitting this off into its own show. We will see how it goes, because sometimes the overlooked games chunk runs very long, as it did last week. And the show last week was the better part of an hour. It was like 52 minutes. And if that ends up impacting on how many people have the time to check out the show, then I'll clearly listen to that, and I will change it going forward. And I might end up putting, a segmented version of this out, make it so that the Just Good Game News is literally just the news, the breaking news, and then separate out the overlooked games. Everything else is always in the Just Good Game show anyway. It's always in the overall recording. So if you want everything, you can just go listen to the audio version. I don't know, I'm a month into doing this. I'm still figuring things out. And it makes me wonder if a Just Good overlooked games show news thing might work well. So we'll see. But for now, it's part of this video, and we'll just see going forward. I might put a poll out on the Discord or something and see what you would all prefer. But yes, because I want to recommend something, and then we'll get to the community suggestions. My pick for this week is Star Wars Outlaws, a game that I absolutely loved. I'm mentioning it because it's on Switch 2. Now, I have not played the Switch 2 version just yet, but every single reviewer, including the likes of Digital Foundry, who are the absolute experts when it comes to analyzing performance, frame rate, general optimization for a game on a platform, say that this thing is a bit of a miracle on the Switch 2. Now, I'm not, like I said, I haven't played the Switch 2 version yet, but I am taking a minute to just shout that game out, just give that game its flowers. I absolutely love this thing, and I'm not that big of a Star Wars guy anymore. Like I have been completely checked out since like 2018. I'll check back in every now and then. Like Andor is spectacular, but Outlaws is. I feel like every time you see a trailer for this game or someone talks about it, the comments are always, "Yes, this game is way better than people thought it was." Just in terms of the various gameplay loops that you have and the way that you explore the world and the story itself, it does become a little bit too much archetypal Star Wars by the end. But the 3 pillars that make up gameplay, like this Uncharted style third-person shooting, the different driving sections that you can do, and then the starfighter dogfights that you do out in space, I think all those sections come together really, really well. And obviously you've got the sound effect, the production value is sky high. There's a really great feeling of just exploring a Star Wars landscape that I don't feel any other game's done. Like, we've had plenty Star Wars games. The Jedi titles are fantastic from Respawn, but we haven't had an open world Star Wars game that lets you indulge in the sort of ambience of Star Wars, like sitting on the edge of a cliff, watching different speeder bikes go by underneath you, or watching different civilians walk around in their spaces, interacting with the merchants, going to the bar, and playing a game of, oh my God, what the hell is it called? There's a gambling mini game that you can do, which I absolutely loved. I lost a few Sundays to just sitting playing that, especially when my kid was tiny. When he was only like a few months old, little man was just asleep next to me, and I was just gambling away down the cantina in Star Wars. Which is great, and it feels like you're living in that space. It is pulling notes from how Rockstar do open worlds, which is obviously the highest praise you can give an open world game. I'm not saying it's comparable in terms of, I'm not saying it's Red Dead 2, but I can see what they're pulling from, and I think they nail the vast majority of it. I think Kay's a great character. I really like the stealth as well. I think I'm obviously a sucker for third-person shooting and cover shooting, but I do think these gameplay loops come together really well. And yeah, all around, I was just blown away by it. Presentationally, gameplay-wise, story-wise, some of the little set pieces that you do are really cool, and the fact that you can take on objectives in different orders that will then be reflected in how characters talk to you, I think it's really cool. Game's just awesome, and like I said, it never got its love. I feel like it's coming around because it's been on sale quite a lot. And now that it's on Switch 2, it is being held up as like, oh my god, look at this thing. And the Switch 2 version comes with all the DLC, so there's all the Lando Calrissian gambling side story stuff is in there as well. But yeah, man, I had an absolute blast with Outlaws, and it's very rare that I get that it comes up. You know, it's because it is such an overlooked title. So it's awesome, and cross progression's on. I'm honestly debating trading some games in, getting it on Switch, and continuing mopping everything up where I was in my save on Xbox, because I initially played it using Ubisoft's Plus or whatever their monthly service is called, which I would totally recommend. You know, you don't have to pay full price for it. Get yourself a month of Ubisoft Plus. You'll probably get through it in a month. I did, and you can have a lovely time, and then just cancel your subscription again. If you want to play a full price game for like £7, I'd go down the Ubisoft Plus route. That's what I would do. But yeah, Outlaws rules, and I just want to sing about it for a little bit. On to community suggestions, and JB_Patrol suggests Prince of Persia: Warrior Within. The source on this game. Now, this is a prime pick for the middle of the 2000s, when every single game decided it needed more attitude.
I'm gonna kill Praxis.
Every character in the sequel had the little goatee thing, which, yes, it is that. That's the 2000s right there. That's how much I'm carrying with me. But I love like all these sequels. I love all of the attitude that was in these games. And Prince of Persia: Warrior Within is just an awesome sequel. I get that it's out of place when you look back at the series overall, but the combat system was great. The twin blades was awesome. The soundtrack as well by Godsmack. I've not listened to Godsmack since like 2005 or something. But that I Stand Alone song is just such a great pick for the theme song of that thing. It made me buy that Faceless album back then as well. Oh my god, I might have to put some Godsmack on. What a great stupid band from the middle of the 2000s, with arguably one of the finest wah pedal guitar tones ever made. But yeah, man, when it comes to the Prince of Persia series, I feel like when you look back, like I said, Warrior Within is the sort of ugly duckling intentionally. It's the sort of the weird middle stepchild thing of that trilogy, that initial trilogy. But it's definitely the one that I remember the most fondly. And as much as I love Sounds of Time and Two Thrones, Warrior Within is the one that stands out. So shout out to Warrior Within, and shout out to gaming's attitude era for the middle of the 2000s. It was a glorious time. Daza UK 1985 recommends the Ender games, which I'll shout out. I haven't actually played these yet, although I hear a lot about them. But Ender Lilies and Ender Magnolias, I'll chuck some gameplay footage on the video. They also mentioned that they're phenomenal Metroidvanias that they've loved and platinumed on PlayStation, with Magnolias only coming out in 2025. I don't feel like it's talked about anywhere near enough. No, you're right. I mean, I see these pop up in the graphic. The art style really grabs me, but I'm yet to play them. But saying that they're Metroidvanias, this is definitely the season of Metroidvanias. And so I'll hopefully get around to them. But shout out to the Ender series. Like, it's mentioned a lot, and it gets highlighted a lot in various different sales and things like that. And so hopefully by mentioning it here, other Enders fans can say, finally! Lastly, we have one hell of a recommendation from KCollier2192, who shouts out Gunstar Heroes on the Mega Drive / Genesis, as well as Herzog Zwei. Two games. I feel like people know what Gunstar Heroes is. If you don't, again, I'll chuck some footage up. Side-scrolling shooter, really gorgeous animation, and really like a really awesome color palette and cutscenes and everything else. My memory of that is like 25 years old at this point, but I remember thinking it was really, really cool. So shout out to Gunstar Heroes. Herzog Zwei, I've not played, but I did look up some gameplay for it, and it seems like that game was incredibly ahead of its time. Like a top-down, almost like a twin-stick shooter style approach to a game that also let you transform. You're playing as like this F-16 jet as you're flying around shooting dudes, and then you can transform to be an on-the-ground like pilot / mech person to do on-foot shooting as well. For the time period that came out, super, super cool. It always makes me think of, all the different gameplay mechanics that came about across the 90s when way more devs were getting involved in the gaming industry. You'd had the crash across the 80s. You'd had the bygone era of Intellivision and Atari getting out the way. Then you had the rise of Nintendo and Sega and more palatable experiences for a wider audience, bringing way more devs and way more game ideas to the fore. They were selling. It felt like anything that someone could come up with would find its audience. I miss that period in gaming. It's not that it's not here anymore. It is. It's just very much in the indie space or the AA space. The AAAs in the modern day are usually bound by, shareholder expectations or trying to make the biggest product possible, when I just love looking looking back at titles like this and going like, oh, they had such a good idea, like a transforming main character, like a couple of different gameplay styles in one. How awesome is that? And then it was, like it was available and it found this cult classic following and all that kind of stuff. Like I said, the parallels are definitely there to the indie space now, but that boom across the 90s, or you pick any particular decade of a turn of a console generation, that initial boom of what can we do with this tech is just so cool. And yeah, when it comes to raw innovation, that is rarely in the top tier space anymore. It tends to be in the lower rungs in the modern day. Just shout out to Gunstar Heroes and shout out to Herzog Zwei. Next up, 3 game deals and 3 game deals, if you know what I'm saying. This week we have an insane one of the most proficient, recommendable, and outstanding titles ever made from Remedy, the game that is called Control. This thing, for some reason, is down to only £3.49 on the PlayStation Store, and that's for the Ultimate Edition as well, the one that comes with the DLC and the extra costumes and stuff. It's on sale until the 24th of September, so genuinely, if you want to play one of the best games ever made, go play Control. It's just exemplary. Like, if you haven't played a Remedy game, you might know them from Max Payne, or you might have heard of Alan Wake, but Control is another extension of that, of the world that they've started to build, but the general authorship that is in their games, the fact that they are written in such a way that is channeling all these old school film noir tropes, mixed with all this David Lynchian surrealism, mixed with their own love of action cinema. It's such a great trifecta of recommendable qualities. And Control, it's a third-person shooter. You are running up, you're taking on all these different enemies and everything, but you also have access to my favorite thing in gaming, telekinetic powers, where you can just pick up dudes and chuck them around. You can pick up any part of the environment and just stonk it off a dude's face. I absolutely love it. The power set in Control feels incredible, and the sound design is great as well. Every time you pick something up, because you're weaponizing this ability called the Hiss. Ish, there's a whole storyline, but the Hiss is like the enemy energy thing. My point being that whenever you use this ability and you pick something up through sheer force of will or your character's mind alone, it makes this really cool hissing noise. And just combat in that game just absolutely sings. Like, Control's fantastic. Like, oh my god, I actually can't believe it's on sale for such a low price. I'm not sponsored by this or the game or Remedy or the PlayStation Network or whatever, but when you just see that a game's available and you just want to recommend it or sing about it, dude, Control absolutely rules. Next up, over to the Switch, and we have Into the Breach on sale for £2.84. Until the 14th of September. So by the time the video version of this goes live, you'll only have a couple days to snap that one up. But it is worth it. One of the coolest grid-based strategy games ever made. It's also by the dudes that made FTL, which sadly isn't available on consoles, Faster Than Light. That was another top-down strategy game, not in the same vein. It's not a turn-based strategy, but FTL was a really cool ship management game, only available on Steam as far as I can see, from a team that didn't do anything else. Like, they did FTL, they did Into the Breach, and that was it. But in regards to Into the Breach, it is, like I said, a turn-based, grid-based strategy game where you have all these different units. Story-wise, you're commanding different ships and different mechs and sending them back in time to try and prevent a cataclysm in the future, leading to fighting these different bugs in the past that all come out through the ground. There are all these different unit types and enemy types that you need to consider. It just is a very raw, cerebral game, and it leads to being able to do all these different combos in regards to thinking of like 2 or 3 steps ahead, because the game tells you when an enemy is about to land on the area itself, on the grid itself. So you can think like, okay, let me take this dude out, let me fire this weapon this way, and then I'm going to slide over here and get on top of this potential emergence hole so I can block this thing coming up. It's really, really cool. Supremely hard as well, like FTL was, but not in a way where it feels insurmountable. It never feels cheap. It always feels like the game is giving you all the tools to be able to get through, and you're always unlocking different mechs, different upgrades as well, as you go forward. So you always stand a better chance the more that you dive in and just try again, just try one more run. Hopefully you'll get there next time around. Just shout out to Subset Games. Like, I miss you guys, and I would love it if you would put FTL on Switch or consoles or something. It's kind of fundamentally tied to keyboard controls because it's like you're a commander of a ship with your keyboard and all these other different shortcuts on the keys. But FTL and Into the Breach are just stellar strategy titles, and just heartily recommendable for as little time as this deal is on. The last one is a little bit of a tweak here, but it's interesting what's happening with the game Echoes of the End. It came out out from a new studio called, I think they're called Miyakura Games. I think they're Icelandic, and it's their first ever game. And I'm not sponsored by them whatsoever. But I've been following the game for the last, well, honestly, the last sort of 2 or 3 weeks. People shout it out on the Discord and shout it out in the YouTube comments saying, have you seen this game? This insanely overlooked title called Echoes of the End. Now, obviously, it got completely buried, in the last few weeks. There was very little marketing for it, and especially with something like Hollow Knight coming out, it just barely stands a chance. However, what is interesting is on the dev side, they've been very open and communicative in regards to taking the feedback. A lot of people didn't like the combat system, thought that it was quite cheap in terms of how enemies were attacking through your swing and things like that. The game looks absolutely gorgeous. Like it looks initially like it's gonna play like the more modern God of Wars, and I've shouted out on previous weeks, just because it was like such a fascinating title to appear out of nowhere and look so proficient. Like it looks absolutely stunning. But I'm yet to play it just yet. However, I have bought it. But yeah, I wanted to mention that it's actually on sale. Now, I feel like if you look over on the YouTube channel, you look at how Miyakura Games are handling the rollout of this game. Like they've said, it's their first title. They worked on it for years. It clearly didn't sell whatsoever, even though it looks incredible. They have now put a video out saying, look, we hear you and we've overhauled the combat system. They literally have side-by-sides on the video showing the different changes that they've made. They had to overhaul some of the lighting effects as well because the game was freezing on PC. And so they've gone in there and literally just kind of overhauled the combat system. It plays a lot more freely now, at least in theory. And they say, thanks for giving us all the feedback. We've managed to implement this stuff. And it seems like a AA game. It's not like it's some tiny team, and it's not a big production either. However, I did want to mention it because the game is now on sale. That's what made me snap it up. I was like, I'm going to just pay to support you guys because I really like what you're doing. I like the feedback side of things, the engagement with the community, and also just, being able to go from nothing to a title that looks this ambitious. I'm hoping to put a playthrough together for it because I do think it's maybe the most overlooked game of 2025, especially in regards to the amount of money and time and effort that's been put into it and the dev time to then not get seen whatsoever. I think it's an interesting turn of events, and I want to root for devs like this, where it's their first title. They've knocked it out the park in regards to the production quality, and then they hit the teething issues. There's the reality of finally getting your work out there and people not seeing it or whatever it is, and you take it on the chin, or the chest or whatever, and you work on it and you get out there and you make a video and say, hey, look, we got it wrong. We're trying again. We're reducing the price. Hopefully you guys give it a chance or whatever. I think it's going to be one of those games that it won't get its flowers for a good long while. I think it's going to need to be on a PlayStation Plus collection or go Game Pass or something like that. Maybe PS Plus because it's a little bit more curated, and I feel like people talk about those games like, oh my god, this is on PS Plus this week, a little bit more than they do with whatever comes to Game Pass. So I don't know if that's going to be what eventually gets the word out for Echoes of the End. And I'm not endorsing the quality of the game itself. I'm just saying that I think it's interesting the way that this is all rolled out and kind of fascinating, and I want to celebrate the devs for being able to roll their game out this way. But check out the trailers, look at the footage that's available and see what you think. I'll be diving in myself. I've already committed. I just wanted to give them some money, to be honest, and just say good on you for rolling with the punches, because it seems like there have been a hell of a lot of punches. Next up, tips and tricks, and we'll do them for the beloved Hollow Knight. Now, I am a casual Hollow Knight player. I'm so aware of the spectrum of Hollow Knight fans and players and how insanely competent people get playing this game. I know that my own beloved Josh Brown is further into the game than I am, and is way more proficient when it comes to just video games overall than me. So my tips and tricks for Hollow Knight are just two simple things that worked for me, where I went, that's cool, even though they're probably going to seem extremely simple. One is that whenever you go back and forward off different level screens, the enemies respawn, which is really, really obvious, but it's worth just remembering that Hornet can get her health back if you attack an enemy enough times to build up the Silk Meter to then cash that in for a health boost. So if, at least for me, when I'm struggling going to the next screen on one health bar, I just go back, respawn the most simple enemies, wail on them and get my health back, and then go forward. I think considering how much momentum there can be in Hollow Knight, especially once you start getting the dashes and you start exploring faster and everything else, it can be quite easy to just think, oh, I'm screwed, I need to go to this next level, part of the level, and just withstand whatever comes at me. But you can't just go the other way, providing the screen that you came from has an enemy that's easy enough to defeat, and get your health back that way. It worked for me. I'm apologizing if it's too simple, but it worked for me. And speaking of too simple, an extremely overlooked thing is that you can literally dash straight down. I think, once you acquire the dash and you're going left and right, which is the way that, you end up using it in the section that you get it when you're going platform to platform, you can just do it to go straight down, to stop your momentum dead and stop on the spot. It's really helpful when you're fighting bosses like Lace, or there's a boss that you have to fight at the beginning. I forget the name of the dude, but it's the guy that's standing on the other end of the room holding the weapon out at you. You need the dash to be able to defeat that guy. guy, but if you also just want to stop on the spot to get out the way of any of their attacks, it's worth saying that you can dash directly downwards. I haven't seen this shown anywhere, and I did it by accident when I was picking up my controller. So I'm throwing that in as well. The general caliber of the tips and tricks week to week are usually higher than this, because I just feel like I'm completely dwarfed by the magnitude that is Hollow Knight and the skill levels that are in there. But we can start the conversation. Let me know your own favorite Hollow Knight tips and tricks wherever you might find me. Lastly, some trivia. Just a nice little nugget of trivia to send you off into the weekend. Because it is the PlayStation's 30th anniversary, it was actually on the 9th of September. Now, it always depends on which region you're from when your 30th anniversary with PlayStation was. But the 9th of September was the North American one, so there's a bit of more conversation doing the rounds with that. PlayStation have put out this 30th anniversary hashtag. They want people to share different memories in regards to the system. And I'll talk about them in a bit. But if we're talking about a little bit of trivia, then Alinea Analytics have put out the list of best-selling PlayStation 1 games, which, as far as I know, haven't been this detailed. You know, Sony are always quite tight-lipped when it comes to first-party sales. And maybe this information has been, different bits of it will have been freely available from different sources over the years. However, it's worth noting that we have a top 20 best-selling games on the PlayStation 1, going from 1 through to 20, and you can try and guess this. The number 1 best-selling PlayStation 1 game for that entire console's run was Gran Turismo 2. I did not see that coming at all. I thought it would be Crash 3, Metal Gear Solid, whatever. So counting from 1 to 20, we have Gran Turismo 2 at number 1. Then we have Crash Bandicoot 2, Cortex Strikes Back at number 2. Gran Turismo is in at number 3. Crash Bandicoot 3 is at number 4. The Jam Pack series for PlayStation is at number 5, which I assume is some sort of bundle deal thing. We definitely didn't have that in the UK, or if we did, I just missed out. Number 6 is the 1997 version of Frogger. Who the hell was buying a PS1 to play Frogger? Was it you? It wasn't me. Number 7, Spyro the Dragon. Number 8, Crash Bandicoot, which is interesting. The original Spyro above the original Crash. That's fascinating. We also have number 9, Tekken 3. Which is my favorite PS1 game of all time. Like, I find Tekken 3 to be absolutely immortal. I can go back to that thing any day of the week with a smile on my face. I have a copy of it on my phone legally, which isn't true, and it's a nice place to be. So yes, number 7, Spyro the Dragon. Number 8, Crash Bandicoot. Number 9, Tekken 3. Number 10, Driver. Number 11, Final Fantasy 7. Which, again, crazy that the original Driver and that tutorial level beat Final Fantasy 7. But I guess speaks to the viability or the popularity of driving games versus JRPGs, especially for the time. Number 12, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. Number 13, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. Number 14, Metal Gear Solid. Metal Gear coming in below the Tony Hawk's games. Again, fascinating. You think about how iconic Metal Gear Solid is and how much it's always put right alongside, PS1 ephemera wallpapers, things like that. Like Metal Gear Solid and PS1, I feel go together, like Nutella and peanut butter, which is a good thing. And so it's a bit of a shock to see it so low on the list. Number 15, the Namco Museum Volume 3. Number 16, Crash Team Racing. My beloved Crash Team Racing. The finest kart racing game ever made, I might say. Number 17, WWE Warzone. Number 18, Driver 2. Number 19, Final Fantasy 8. And number 20, Ripto's Rage. Spyro 2, Ripto's Rage. A fantastic rundown for a particular console to be able to have. And so many fond memories. With Sony asking for PlayStation memories, I obviously have millions, there's so many, to be honest. Like talking about, the PS1, I was given my PS1, well, I was able to play the first PlayStation sitting in my mum's office. She used to always work weekends and I had to go in with her when I was too young to be in the house by myself, 6, 7, 8 years old, whatever it was. And I would go into this office and I would take all my little pens and my books and I would, try and play. I had my Game Boy back then too. And one of her workmates, came in one day and was like, "Oh, is your son just killing time essentially?" And she was, "Oh, I've got this thing for him, this box for him." And my mum was like, "Okay," and she set it up. This co-worker set it up in the conference room for the office. So I had this massive conference room, big old long table, all the chairs on both sides, and a TV at the bottom. And she set up the PS1 on there with Croc Legend of the Gobos and the first Ridge Racer as well. And so when I would go in on those weekends back in 95, 96, whatever, well, I guess the console was only out in 97 or whatever. Still, it was that original period where her son wasn't bothered about the PS1, so she brought it in on the weekends for me, and I would just sit in this big conference room with the TV in the corner, because back then it's not like they had a big TV either. It was like this small little 4:3 ratio thing, with, you know, playing Croc Legend of the Gobos and Ridge Racer and a couple of demo discs that I'd picked up from the official PlayStation mag, just having my mind blown by 3D graphics. And there was a racing game back then as well that I've never been able to find again. It was on a PlayStation demo disc. It was a racing game. It was quite anarchic. It wasn't Destruction Derby. It was a lot more over the top. And that's kind of all I remember about it. I remember thinking that it was intense and quite potentially bloody and visceral. But I don't remember much more than that. So if people know what that game was, it would have been from the sort of, you know, mid to late 90s on the PS1. I'm very curious what that game is. But yeah, man, that's my original PlayStation memory. That was my introduction to PlayStation. Which was just like, you know, mind-blowing. You go from Game Boy Color to the PlayStation 1, and it was absolutely outstanding. But yeah, man, 30 years. I'm 36, so it's you know, being introduced to PlayStation as soon as possible was a big old deal. I also remember looking at the initial screenshots for the first Metal Gear Solid and then going to pick that up and just having my mind blown yet again with what video games could even be. Like, what a great time to grow up, you know, what a great time to be alive. And that has been the Just Good Game News. Hopefully you enjoyed it. This one ended up running on a little bit as well. And I know I'm always getting the mixed feedback in terms of whether people prefer the longer episodes or the shorter episodes. Some people get to them over time. Some people would prefer them to be segmented, to have the overlooked games as their own thing, the breaking news as its own thing. I will continue to monitor the views, the watch time, the engagement, that kind of stuff. Because last week's show, that was the one that was 52 minutes long, had the highest retention rate. Like, you know, and I'm not one to get lost in the analytics. I've been doing this professionally for 12 years. You know, I kind of have in theory, a good idea of what to focus on, what to worry about, things like that. But I am genuinely, on a human level, I am curious what you guys think in regards to the length of a weekly show that you're going to be checking out. Would you prefer it to be shorter overall? You know, the longer ones seem to be okay. There's probably no way for me to win. It's just going to be finding a happy medium for the community as it grows. And that might be closer to a half hour or so. But the solution for that is probably still going to be a big old bulk recording where I'm putting everything together and then just segmenting things out on the YouTube, so you can pick and choose different angles, different things that you want to see. There are timestamps though in the description, so if you're coming back week to week thinking like, oh well, I kind of just want to know what the overlooked games are, or I just want to check out the tips and tricks or whatever it is, go to the description first, use the timestamps, jump through the show, see which bits you gravitate towards, and we'll figure it out together. You can head over to the Patreon if you would like to get ad-free early access to the overall Just Good Game show. But thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll catch you on the Patreon. I might catch you on the Discord. If not, I'll catch you next week. Goodbye.